We are live, and Ben Quist is bringing it already. He is the man. He is the reason the letter Q exists. There's no other reason for it. We're in the Quist zone, not the Quisp zone. He is the man. He is here to help us and teach us things, and in a fun way, and all for the benefit of you. So listen up, kids, because he's got a lot of good stuff to say and share. And so with that, Dr. Ben Quist.
That's the only reason I do this show is because you do such a great introduction.
How are you, Ben?
I'm good. How about you, Jack Oxide?
There are a lot of oxides out there, it seems like, and there could be some confusion.
Yes,
You've been on the
it's
road.
true.
Have you been on the road learning, Ben, or was it all like a bachelor party, or what was going on?
Well, last week I was at a conference, a sports performance conference in Arizona, and also a business summit. So, kind of doing those two things, but learned some really cool stuff about fascia, which I won't bore you with today. I'll bore you with that in a different episode of
Okay,
your show.
fascia. You got to tell. Well,
Fascia.
just tell us what it is. We don't have to go into detail. But what you can't drop a name like that and not say what it is.
Fascia is the kind of rubber bandy connective tissue of the body. So it's kind of the packing material that surrounds our muscle tissue, creates our tendons, things like that.
Sounds pretty important.
It's actually way more important than people think.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So you're always bringing up important stuff that we don't think about,
I am.
and this week you told me to do a dynamic warm up on right,
Yes.
right. I took it to heart on nitric. I did some research. I want you to know.
Wow.
I even cut down a tree so that I could
Okay.
do a little thing here. But it's the first thing is you want to talk about today nitric oxide, correct? Correct.
Yeah, you said it right because
Yes.
there's two different there's nitrous oxide, which a lot of people have heard of, which is what your dentists use to put you into laughing gas, right, when they do a procedure. But then there's nitric oxide, which is a very, very important molecule in the human body that many people have not even heard of.
Well, and I think that's exactly right. Everybody says I just bounced it off a couple of people. They say laughing gas. I'm like, I don't think so.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
I did a little research, but let's hear why this. Why is it important, Ben? Why is nitric oxide important to us?
So it's interesting, and I found it fascinating too because when I started to look into it, it's like, gosh, why aren't people talking about this more? Like, it is such an important thing, but it is a molecule that basically, when it is kind of stimulated by different things that you do, it creates vasodilation of the arteries. So it creates them to get kind of bigger, and that blood flow would be increased when the arterial diameter increases. So we have the ability to kind of for that to happen. Arteries can constrict and they can expand. But nitric oxide is the molecule that is very, very much so involved in that process. And it also has some things that it does with the lining of the arterial wall, the epithelial of the inner lining of the wall that keeps it really healthy. But so you might be saying, well, gosh, who gives a crap about whether my arteries are like dilated or constricted, right?
I think it sounds pretty important.
Well, I mean, you start to go through all of the things that are affected by that. So, number one, cognition, blood flow to your brain. Number two, blood pressure. I think there's more than a few people that are probably listening to this right now that have high blood pressure. But one of the things that indicates maybe you're having a problem with your nitric oxide production is the fact that you have high blood pressure. So because it really modulates that as the resistance gets less by the diameter getting bigger, blood pressure drops. And blood pressure is an epidemic across this country. Like we are a country of people with super high blood pressure, which is not good. That does tons of bad things to the body. But then you can just go all down the body, how it affects the heart, how it affects your, like anything that has blood flow, this is a very, very important molecule. So it's like, gosh, I mean, why aren't we talking about it or thinking of ways to maximize it? Or on the converse, why is everybody in America doing everything wrong to make it bad? Like they're making their production of this molecule awful. Like we are doing all the wrong things.
Now, Ben, when you say that, do you mean the production of this molecule? Are you talking about supplements, or are you talking about foods that we shouldn't be eating? Which is it, or both?
So there's several different things that basically stimulate its production in our body, and then I'll go down the list and you tell me what you see many people in America doing and what you see many people in America not doing. So
Oh God.
one of the main drivers of nitric oxide is exercise. And it makes total sense. So have you ever had like a muscle pump when you're lifting weights? Right?
Yep.
You know, or you're doing cardio and you start to feel heat and blood flow going to your limbs.
Yep.
Well, that's what's happening. So exercise, when the blood starts to pass through the vessels at a faster pace because of your heart beating faster, when you're exercising, that stimulates that. So blood can get shunted to the areas that it needs to go as you're exercising. So exercise is one of the most important mechanisms by which you stimulate this production of this very, very important molecule. And if we look at the effects, because I start to put all these things together, like you look at the effects, like exercise is so much more potent than most medicines for fixing things like heart disease or high blood pressure, or it has some really, really strong effects. And I think it's because that is one of the main things exercise does, along with a host of other things, obviously. But that is one of the big factors, and really why everybody should be moving or doing some form of exercise every single day.
It seems to me it's like so many things in life where when the simple answer seems too obvious, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, this is a problem. You can just exercise or walk or go on a treadmill or lift weights. You can do all this, and everybody's like, no. I need supplements. I need to do certain things like this. It just seems like we are resistant to. Just because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy. But that's the simple answer
Totally.
we seem to reject.
It is. It's really strange. I mean, I think the stat on that is maybe 20% of the people in the United States, adults, exercise on a regular basis. But 80% or the majority of Americans are not exercising. Some not at all. And the effect that it has on your body because of this mechanism with nitric oxide, but multitude of other different things that affects poorly, is just it's a bad decision. It really is something that people should be focusing on. So that's number one of a way that we can stimulate it, where 80% of people are not doing that.
So your own body creates it. You're talking about getting your own nitric oxide engine.
I don't know the whole mechanism by which that works, but I know that one of the main things that stimulates that is the fact of blood coursing through the arterial system faster. The shear force. So the second one, and this is the one where I had a guy say once, "Why would you ever want to eat plants? That's the stupidest thing." Like, you could tell, like, with basically in his mind, he's like, "That's the dumbest thing ever. Plants have no benefit whatsoever. Why would you want to eat them? I'm just going to eat meat all the time at every meal, and multiple courses of meat and dairy products slapped upon each other, and make a sandwich out of cheese, meat, and cheese." He's just like, you could just see he was that kind of person. And I kind of started to think about it. And I have a video I'm going to be doing for my YouTube channel on that exact answer. There's some unique things you can get from plants that you cannot get from the animal kingdom. And one of those is the top 10 foods that stimulate nitric oxide production in the body are all vegetables. And the superstar of the top 10 are leafy greens. So when you chew leafy greens in your mouth, they interact with some anaerobic bacteria in the grooves of your tongue, and then it creates this whole system that produces nitric oxide. Have you ever heard of athletes that take beets?
Beets are kind of becoming a thing. Sounds like it seems to
the
me.
The reason they're becoming a thing is because beets are a very potent stimulator of this molecule. So it has good effect for people that are endurance athletes if they take the beets, and then it helps with their blood flow and everything when they're exercising.
Yeah.
But so the very simple thing of just chewing, many different types of vegetables creates this potent pathway. And it makes me wonder, gosh, is that why leafy greens are one of the foods that is the most highly linked to not getting dementia? Is that why leafy greens seem to be so healthy for heart health? Is it because it's stimulating this pathway? Maybe that's one of the mechanisms, just like what exercise does. But it makes a potent argument for the fact of eating vegetables, chewing them, and again, you look at most Americans and you say, okay, well, how many servings of leafy greens did you get this week? Some people would be a big old goose egg, right? The only thing they're getting from the vegetable kingdom is ketchup and maybe a potato in the form of a French fry every so often. So again, it's a big fat fail, and And I'm sick of all the babyish kind of stuff of like, oh, I don't like salads, they're gross. Just grow up. Like you're not 3 years old. You're not like Mikey eating the cereal. Like, oh, Mikey, even Mikey will eat it. Like, just start eating some vegetables. Like, and it's also so interesting to me how many of the things that are kind of like the advice your great grandmother would have given you, like eat your vegetables, or like you need to move every day. Like all of those things are founded on just truths that have been taken from the vast history that they just kind of figured out that they work. But now that science is kind of like dissecting them, you can figure out why they work. But so that is another potent stimulator of nitric oxide, is chewing those leafy greens and getting that whole system in place. And then a couple other smaller ones, breathing through your nose. So when you breathe through your nose, that is helpful with that. If you have ever heard how mouth breathing is not healthy, there's people that tape their mouths shut when they sleep and everything. One of the reasons that's not good for you is because you're meant to breathe through your nose. Obviously, if you're not exerting yourself massively, like obviously you're start breathing through your mouth, but there's a lot of benefit that comes from breathing through your nose. Again, it's another stimulatory pathway for nitric oxide.
So those are excuse me, Ben. That's a yoga thing too. That's when
breathing through your nose, breathe out through your mouth. Yep, totally. So it is. So there's something to that, even from this particular thought process. And then I'm going to give you a couple suggestions for what not to do if you want to completely like destroy this pathway in your body. So number one would be don't move ever. Like sit on your couch and watch reruns of like different shows for like hours and hours at a time and never move. And then number two would be use really harsh antiseptic mouthwash. That will kill all the bacteria in your mouth, and that will degrade that mechanism by which that one works. So does that make sense? So that the bacteria have to be in there for that one to work. So if you kill them all, with some of like Scope or like whatever, Listerine, like some of that stuff you can feel burn in your mouth, right? So I've stopped using any of those types of things, and I look at the different products I'm using to make sure that there aren't really, really strong antibacterial components to them. Another area of a microbiome is in your mouth. Like that, it's meant to be a functioning microbiome. Bacteria is meant to be in there, and so something to think of. And then breathing through your nose is an easy one. It's just breathe through your mouth all the time if you don't want to work on that pathway. Be a mouth breather. So that's my little NO discussion. But it just shocks me that doctors don't talk more about it. That there are some supplements that may work to help with this, but again, it is kind of like this reductionary thought process. So, well, if beets work, what we're going to do is we're going to powder the beet, and then we're going to put the beet in this capsule, and then you're going to swallow that. Does that have the same effect? If we just talked about the fact that you have to chew the food, it's probably not as effective. I'm not saying it doesn't work at all, but it'd probably be more effective to eat actual beets and chew them in your mouth. Beets are gross. I'm sorry, I hate beets. Ugh.
You hate beets?
I'm not a beet eater.
I'm lucky.
You love beets?
As a kid, I never liked them because we always had seemed to me we always had the canned beets and they just sucked.
Yeah.
But there are so many farm stands now that have beets, and then they tell you how to make them. So they're delicious, and you don't even need to put anything on them. Some people say you got to put butter on. No. If you make them right, they're wonderful.
They're pretty good, huh? Yeah. I believe you. I believe you. You're probably right about that. But yeah, I probably just have done too much just steaming them or whatever, and they're just gross.
Go to Woody's this summer. I know there are others, but Woody's is our go-to in Cedarburg, in the town of Cedarburg. There's a fruit and vegetable stand. Woody's. They grow all their own stuff, and it's fantastic, and they will help you. They say, "How do I make these?" How do I do it? Well, I to grill these. I never thought of that. So
yeah, totally.
It's really good, and beets are
good.
I can't believe my mom, my grandma would never believe that I saying this today that I like beets. I really do, and that's
great. I mean, you're lucky. I mean, I think that's a very, very healthy food for you. And it's so funny. The brightly colored fruits and vegetables usually are the ones that have every different color of a fruit or vegetable is a different phytonutrient that helps your body. So that bright red has got to be doing something for you.
Right.
But yeah, it's just so cool. I could go on and on and on. That's why my next video is going to be on why you should eat plants. Because it's just like there are so many different things that are in those food sources that are really important for the human body. So
huge, and
it's huge.
So my little research helps blood vessels relax and widen, which you talked about, improves blood flow and lowers blood pressure, which you talked about. It's in leafy greens, beets, and it said the thing I said citrus fruits. So if people even don't even like vegetables, is that right, Ben? Citrus, like I would think oranges and
I just looked
grapefruits
at the top 10. I'm assuming there's probably different quantities of all different plant food, but I have not looked into the comprehensive list. But I've just noticed that the top 10, like 8 of them are leafy greens, and beets I think is up there too. So
spinach, I'm glad I like spinach too. That's a thing. Helps with your immune system. These things do brain blood flow, which sounds like a good thing, and erectile function. So we got it all. We got both.
I feel like that's a lot of good stuff. I don't know of anybody that doesn't want these things.
We got the big head and the little head.
Yes, no, and that's why it's just weird to me that like no one talks about this stuff. Why is it something where you go to the man on the street and ask them, and pretty much like 99 out of 100 would have no idea what you're talking about, and maybe that's some of the stuff we should be learning.
Well, I think it has an unfortunate name. Nitric acid sounds like nitroglycerin almost, and I know that's good for heart stuff too, but it just sounds like something you wouldn't want. But
yeah, it is a weird name. It's a very chemical sounding name.
And for leafy greens, it's just like there's the contrast is too much to logically. I think they need a brand. I think nitric oxide needs a branding agency. I think
it needs a branding. It needs something about it being the blood flow molecule, and why that's important,
Yes.
But it was interesting to me. And whenever I hear these things, like I'll hear certain individuals that I really respect. They'll have service often talk about what they think the healthiest foods to eat are. And one person who I really respect has said like leafy greens are probably the most healthy thing a human being can eat. And they also have like virtually no calories and blah blah blah. But I think probably one of the reasons is because it is one of the food types that really stimulates this pathway, in addition to all the other things that leafy greens in them, so if it gets people to eat a few more salads, hopefully this episode helps.
And there are so many. Margot's a machine on finding things online of how to make things so you don't lose all the nutrients, but they taste better. When we were a kid, you got dubbed in front of you, eat it, you're not moving, kind of a thing. That's what was at our house. And now there are just different ways to make them that can make it just so much more palatable that you wouldn't believe.
Yes. Yeah. No. And I've had some dishes where beets were in there where they were made into some type of a dish and it was delicious, so maybe I do like beets. I don't know, but yeah, you're totally right. Yeah. That's my next thing I got to start learning when I get a little more time in my hand. I got to become a better cook, Yeah, it's kind of fun making all that food too. I just feel like most people don't have a whole lot of time. That'd be a great thing to talk about someday too, is how to get these types of foods quickly. Because that's one thing I think is a legitimate answer. Some people will say, well, hey, I just don't have time to prepare this stuff. But, being a busy working professional and with a family of moderately young children, like I'm busy too, and, my wife no one eats the way I eat. So like, I don't get cooked for, like I do this all on my own. So I figured out ways that even a middle-aged man can do this and function and get these foods in my diet where it's not excessively expensive and I can do it very quickly.
Well, and it's the old, which I believe in, whenever someone tells you, "Oh, I'm sorry I didn't get to it, I was too busy," that means it wasn't that important to them.
That's true. Yep.
And this seems to be pretty important. I mean, you might want to take an extra 20 minutes to learn how to prepare something that's really good for you to taste good, but that might improve your health dramatically. I think people just don't know. I think that's what it is. They just don't understand. So they're coming around. You will find your acolytes, Ben.
Yeah, we're working on it. We're working on it. One person healthier at a time.
That's right. All right. So nitric acid. What's going on at the gym? I found I saw a new thing, DECA, that is.
Oh yeah.
And Can you talk about that
Sure.
at all?
Yeah. So we become a DECA affiliate. DECA is like a safer version of a challenge that you can do to kind of track your fitness levels. So it kind of gamifies fitness, and it gives you a way to see, well, gosh, am I getting fitter or not fitter, and have a fun kind of like contest where you can participate in it and kind of see how you're doing. So it is a series of different movements that you do that monitor your fitness levels, and it's something where I'm in my 50s. I was able to do it, and it basically will then rank you against everybody else at your age group in the entire country, or actually really the entire world who's done it. So you get this leaderboard, so we're going to have a leaderboard up in our club, which will be kind of fun of our club members. But then there's also a leaderboard of the entire, world. And if you were to take it somewhat competitively, like we have a few people who I think are going to do really well in this, like Mike Kotola, the trainer, where he could then, you can qualify and then go to compete at regional and then national and world events too with this. So it's just a fun way. We've always wanted to have some kind of fun fitness test that people could do, or a challenge. Like CrossFit is really good about that. They have like the CrossFit Games. The only unfortunate part is, in most CrossFit gyms, everyone gets hurt. So this is kind of like
kind of a downside.
Yeah, there's no flinging barbells around or doing anything nuts, that's going to tear out every joint in your body. This is a slightly more functional orientated test where, it's Benquist approved. If you don't have major joint limitations, like, and you're have a base of fitness, it'd be a great fun thing to do. So we'll be having our first one in June. We're going to have a hosting event. These types of events typically draw people from all over a regional area. So people from Illinois and other places will be driving to come and participate in the event. But obviously our members will be really pushing our members to do it as well, just for a fun extra thing to do. That's the DECA challenge.
That's cool. That's very cool. So there's always something going on in Form and Fitness. Got really good trainers today. I had MJ did a hell of a job. We did yoga today and the mobility. And then speaking of Michael, I went back and did a noon thing with him for strength and conditioning.
Sure. Yep. Yeah, we got a lot going on at that gym. I mean, it's funny. Like, I even have other people who, or like maybe they're like a training customer at our Mac One location, which is much less going on, but they're like, I got an email from the club. Oh my gosh, you guys have so much going on there. And really our push in this kind of next year is to get more social events going. I would love to get, we're getting a liquor license. I don't know if that's a good idea, but we're going to be having some, beer and doing some social events and some different things in the evenings. But I or even like tailgate or game, Packer game, like watch it in our juice bar area. So I want to get more of that kind of stuff going because everybody's become such good friends at the gym. I just would love to have some more opportunities for people to hang out.
Yeah, it really does become a community of when something happens with someone, whether it's someone in their family or something good or something when it's unfortunate, and people rally around them. So it's really a nice, it's been great. How long has Form and Fitness been open, Ben? Do you know?
25 years now for the first location. Yep.
No way.
The club's been open 19 years.
19.
The Health Large location. And actually it's funny, like we are really probably opening another location in Q1 of next year. So we're going to be growing again. So like,
excellent.
So that'll be interesting to see what happens with that as we continue to open more. So
you bet. It's like resistance training. Got to keep doing it.
You do. Keep growing. Yep. You got to have a pathway for other locations for all the really fantastic staff we have. So they have the ability to progress forward and do new challenges of managing new locations and all this kind of stuff. So really, that's one of the reasons we're doing it is to keep our mission going of trying to help as many people in the Milwaukee community get as healthy as possible, but then also how can I help my staff have wonderful long-term jobs in the fitness industry? So
they want to grow too.
Yep, they do.
Yep. You wouldn't want people who didn't want to grow because they'd just like, this is good. Very cool. All right. And I got my heart scan.
Yes.
And after you said, Jack, I can't, you could barely even talk that day. So I talked to Melanie Plant is my person who I see for health now, and she's like, oh yeah, you go ahead. So we got it all came back. It's my own interpretation of the results, but we'll see. it's always, you should always temper what you think until the physician comes back and gives you the translation. But just getting it done is good. Like you said, if you don't know, you don't know. It's just not.
When I think it serves two purposes, and it's funny. There was a guy that commented on my video that I did with Josh, where Lieberman, the cardiologist, about it is the most predictive test of whether you're non-invasive predictive test of whether you're going to have a heart attack or stroke. And someone was like, well, but it doesn't show the soft plaques. Well, that's not really what we're talking about. Does it predict an actual bad event? Like, that's what we really care about, right? So everyone should be getting it after the age of 40, in my opinion. But just to give you a broad context, like, it goes a score of 0 up into the thousands, depending on, and really a score anything beyond a 0 is not good, So, and the way I look at it is half the population is going to die of heart disease. So those people will have the scores above 0, and the other half of the population is going to die of cancer. So they have the scores, below 0.
You're always Mr.
0.
Sunshine. You're always Mr. I can always count on you to bring us up.
You don't have to worry about just walking along going, dead, like heart attack. You're going to have, something else going to happen to you. So, but I feel like, because it can be kind of like, I don't know why people aren't more frightened of heart attacks. Like, sometimes that's the first symptom you have that you have heart disease is you just fall over dead, and it happens to people in their middle age, more often than not, so it's a scary disease process. And sometimes just having the knowledge that, hey, I got a 0 on a heart scan, it's a huge relief. You can pat yourself on the back and say, you know what? Okay. Don't have to worry about this heart disease stuff right now. Like, and
let's focus on something else.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Very cool. Great. All right. Ben, you've done it again. I never could predict the things you're going to talk about. So it's always something fun and interesting and informative and helpful. So thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Anything big going on this weekend?
Well, it's my birthday, so I have a couple of birthday events going on this weekend.
Wow.
One with my
Happy
wife,
birthday.
and then I have a little party at the house. So it's going to be. I'm looking forward to it. Yep.
Ah, nice.
Yep.
Congratulations.
Yep.
Happy birthday.
How about you? Anything going on in the Jack Oxide household?
I'll be at the club tomorrow and doing a thing with AJ tomorrow. Doing a sports thing with AJ, and I'm working on my new book, so I got some things to do.
Oh, okay.
So,
awesome.
Very
cool.
Yeah, and they're going to get outside as much as possible. Tomorrow's supposed to be nice, too, here.
Yeah, that's what I hear. Yep. All right, well, have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the weather.
You too, and happy birthday, old man. That's great.
Thank you. I'm still here. That's the most important part.
Still here. Ben.